Every day, unknowingly, you use one of the most advanced machines ever made. Inside each smartphone are thousands of tiny parts, lasered, soldered, and assembled with military precision. But how it's actually made? That's been locked behind closed doors. Until now. For the first time, we got exclusive access into Oppo's $1 billion smartphone factory in China, where we'll follow every step from manufacturing to assembly, all the way to brutal final testing, starting by making the brain of the phone, the microprocessor. We're now in the Oppo SMT factory, and this is where the entire cell phone begins. And it all starts with the production of the motherboard. This is the brain of the smartphone, and the line behind me is a production line of where it's made. Let's start. It feels so futuristic in here with all these robots roaming around. The entire motherboard all starts with this. This is called the PCB. It acts as the base layer for all the different components that will be glued onto it. So this is considered one PCB, and you can see there are 4 together because on this production line, 4 PCBs are being worked on at the same time. The next stage is pretty cool because it's kind of like screen printing a t-shirt. This is the stencil for the soldering paste. If you look closely, there are tiny holes on this stencil, and that allows for the glue to pass through. This is a PCB with the solder paste applied. Humans cannot do this. They need machines to be this precise. So we are now entering the next stage of the process, which is mounting the different components. So we apply the solder, now we need the components to solder, right? It's actually really cool because the Find X9 Pro has about 1900 components. Things like resistors, capacitors, and sensors are placed at incredible speeds with pinpoint accuracy. We've now reached another AOI point, which means automatic optical inspection, where the computer is looking at the board visually and identifying any flaws. After it passes inspection, we're mounting bigger components here. This is very interesting. This guy is actually parts of the motherboard. The Oppo Find X9 Pro uses a 3-layer sandwich motherboard. So one layer is built on this production line, while the other 2 pre-built layers feed in and get fused together. We've now reached the giant oven. So before we put the different machines onto the motherboard, but we need to make them stick. So the sandwich motherboard goes to this massive nitrogen oven. This machine has 10 different temperature zones, which is meant to increase and decrease the temperature gradually, so the components stick properly. We've now reached the end of the first phase here, but it's not over because these boards are actually double-sided. So the machine behind me, it takes the board, flips it, sends it back over there, and then they will do the other side, repeating the same process. The next stage is the paneling, where the 4 motherboards are finally separated into individual pieces. We transformed a PCB into a PCBA, which basically means assembled. Now we're moving on to the testing phase of the PCBA. This is the first phase of the testing process, and it starts with the software download. So these machines over here are downloading software onto each motherboard. The ones that finish downloading move on to the next stage of the testing, like Wi-Fi, calibration, and electrical tests. And the electricity test is the last of the testing phase. Now the final touches go on, including glue, thermal paste, and auxiliary pieces like labels for pre-processing. There's like robots everywhere. Wow, this is so cool. And this is the final inspection of the motherboard. After the motherboard's passed inspection, the completed PCBA is ready for the next major step, which is assembly. We're now getting an exclusive look into the assembly factory, where all the phone parts are put together, tested, and packaged for shipping. There's a lot of cool details and robots in each stage, so let's start with the first one. We're now at the first step of the Oppo factory. This is where everything begins. This is a pre-processing, and it all starts with the screen. Right here, this machine is processing the adhesive for the screen, ready to be glued on. This person is prepping the screen to be put into the machine. The cool thing about the Oppo factory is that a lot of the processes are actually automated. The human part is for more complex tasks where there's more variety in what will happen. So after the screens are processed, this is where the screens are now being installed onto the mid-frame. And the machines are able to do it with pinpoint precision. So all 4 of these machines over here are putting on the screen, and you can see it's a production line from the beginning to the end. See, the machine here is doing doing a air tightness test. Basically, it's like a waterproofing test, but instead of using water, they use air and they try to find leaks. And all the parts that fail the test get rejected right here. They get completely disassembled, retested for individual components, then sent back to the beginning of the production. So Oppo has a very high quality standard for what they're willing to accept into the final product. So the first air tightness test marks the end of the pre-processing stage. Now we're moving on to the assembly stage. So now we're at the beginning of the assembly process. I'm gonna take my phone part here, and it already has the cooling paste because the first step starts with the motherboard. This is the brain of the entire cell phone. And with the cooling paste already applied, we can just paste it on there. So after the motherboard has been assembled, you put it into this machine, and the machine is able to secure the motherboard with pinpoint accuracy because it has camera sensors inside that's able to like pinpoint the exact hole. This is a unique process for the new Oppo Find X9 phone, where in order to put on the screen, they have to do it slanted at an angle. Because the bottom side of the screen is curved, this makes the production process a lot more complicated. But because the production process here is so advanced, they're able to do it and automate it no problem. Because I have all access to the factory, now I am the factory worker. This here is the camera assembly stage. The workers here are currently on lunch break, but I get to fill in. First, before I touch anything, I have to remove the static from my body. This is what this bracelet is for. And then we can just kind of pick, oh, very automated. This is before any camera components are assembled. Over here behind me are the individual camera components. This is the main camera sensor on the new X9. I'm not gonna put it together because I honestly have no skill, and this phone would be automatically rejected if I did. But we can move on to the next stage. So from over there to over here is all assembly. And right here is the assembly for the speakers. We had the individual speaker components. So remember, this all started with just a screen. Now you can see the resemblance of a phone already. After the battery is inserted into the phone, the next stage in the assembly process, and we're putting on the battery cover. The machines behind me are testing the air tightness of the battery cover, and one, it's testing the camera bump, and then two is testing the back. So by the end of here, we have a recognizable phone, right? It has a screen, it has a back, but it's not done yet. So we need to send it over to the next line. And how you do that is with this machine right here. If you just place it here, it goes up, it goes all the way there, and then it should come out on this side. I receive it right here. And the reason why they have machines like this is to prevent walking back and forth. They want to automate as much. Oh, I get another one. Look at that. Imagine I had to run back and forth all day long, how long that would take and how tired it would be. So once I receive the phone here, it marks the end of the assembly process, and the phone is fully functioning. You can see it turns on. Now it will enter the third stage, which is function testing. And behind me is the aging test. They're putting the phones into those boxes behind me and testing the different software functions. The aging test is not physical because then you'll be receiving an old phone. Everything hardware-wise is brand new. They're just aging the software. We're now entering the last air tightness test. They have 3 total because the Oppo Find X9 reaches an IP69 rating, which is the highest waterproofing rating. So they have to do extensive testing for the waterproofing. To me, this is one of the coolest function tests because this is the autofocus test for the cameras. The phones get dropped in here and they test the camera autofocus features. And to me, the camera is one of the most important parts of a phone. So this entire row of machines here is all the function tests. There is stuff like camera testing, speaker testing, antenna testing, screen testing. A lot of things happen over here. And the coolest part is that it's fully automated. There is no human interaction here. It's all the machines doing the testing. And these machines are all interconnected by the conveyor belt. So it just seamlessly flows from one to the next and one to the next. We're now entering the last step of the testing phase. And here's our phone, and the phone already has a screen protector on it. And after the screen protector has been put on, the last step is fingerprint testing, and that's this machine right here. So we just slide the phone in there, and the machine is simulating different types of fingerprints to test the fingerprint sensor. And that is the last step of the function testing stage. Now let's go to the research and testing labs, starting with how Oppo analyzes and creates new materials. There are 6 different analyses that they run: surface, optical, electrical, mechanical, structural, and component analysis. And they test 3 different categories of materials: glass, metals, and polymers. This is a room where it all starts. When a new material is developed, it first starts with a request. And before they do any physical tests, they look at materials in their current database and they run simulations on those materials to see if they fit the requirements. And if not, that's when they proceed into doing the actual material testing. Right here is an example of one of the materials that they developed. This shimmering effect is called Oppo glow. And to achieve that, they needed to develop a new material. In this lab, they have over 200 different pieces of equipment. This is like a thermal test over here. But right now, we'll show you some of the cooler tests. Right behind me is an electron scanning microscope. It is a very expensive piece of equipment. So it's able to have a 1 million time magnification on materials. So when you zoom in that far, you're able to see the microstructure of the materials. It's basically seeing a whole new world that we've never seen before. This is a really cool machine. This is a friction and wear testing machine. And basically, it's testing the wear and tear of metal. The test they're doing right now is they're testing the hinge material for one of their foldable phones. Because a hinge, there's a lot of wear and tear when you open and close. So this machine will run for 6 hours, which is equal to 1 million times of opening and closing. So if you open and close your phone for 100 times a day, that's about 27 years of use being tested right here. So behind me is the material impact machine, one of my favorites. How this machine works is you put the material on the base here, and then you can select a metal ball. We just stick it to the magnetic hop over here. Now the ball is secured, and we can adjust the height of this machine to simulate dropping from different heights. And then all we do is press the release button. And here we can see the results of our drop test. We're now in the material aging lab, and this machine right here is called the accelerated weathering tester. And basically it's simulating UV rays on different materials. To perform the test, we retrieve one of these plates and we place our sample material right there, and then we just tape it down. And then we bring it over here, open this thing up. These are kind of the tubes producing the ultraviolet light. And we just place our sample here, and then we just close it up and we select how long we want to test for and what we are testing for. And then we just click run. And now we got instant sunshine, no matter where you are. So the purpose of this test is they want to see how the material changes with the UV rays and heat. Sometimes there may be cracks or yellowing and changes to the material compositions. So this machine only tests the UV rays, but if we walk over here to one of the bigger machines, is a xenon test chamber, and this is testing the full spectrum sunlight. So it's more of a realistic test. As a result of all the hard work they did in this lab, they now have over 100 different patents. Now that we've seen the material testing lab, let's move on to the next stage of how a phone is made. Next, we have the automated microwave lab, where signal tests take place. Basically, it's testing the signal receiving and transmitting capabilities of the phone. Oppo's machine is the industry first automated version of the microwave test. This is unmanned and it's able to do continuous testing 24 hours a day. All right, let's go inside to see how this works. Oh, I can't believe we're getting access to all this. This is so cool. These are the testing samples right here. Normally, they have different phones at the top, as we can see, and these are different testing scenarios. So this head right here is testing a handheld calling position. It's different than just holding the phone up like this because there's some interference with the human body. This one is testing a handheld position when you're looking at the phone like that. How it works is people can schedule a task and the robot will bring the testing sample inside and it's able to place things at a 0.2 millimeter precision. So every test is the same and it will give you very accurate results. All right, coming inside here, there are antennas all over this chamber, and the phone will test its sending and receiving capabilities. Now let's see the robot in action. This is very exciting because I personally get to press the start button. Are we ready, guys? 3, 2, 1, it's go time! Even the door is automatic. Oh, now the robot is coming to pick it up. Oh. Wow, it's able to accurately pinpoint where the stem is to grab. And
And then now it's inside, pinpointing where to go. Now let's move on to the next test. We're now entering the power consumption lab. This is where they try to simulate real-world usage and test the power consumption during different use cases. So basically this machine right here is a professional TikTok scroller. Its life is just doom scrolling all day. I wish this could be my job. So the entire process starts right here. This is the prep rack. All the phones are loaded onto this rack, and then there's a cloud terminal where people can load tests and scripts onto these phones to be tested. Humans don't even have to pick this up. It's all done by a robot. And that's our little friend right here. Their job is to pick up the phones from the prep racks and place them inside the testing stations. Oh, as you can see, the robot is already starting its new task. So now it's gonna go pick up the phones from the rack. It will intelligently select which phones that it wants to test. It's loading the tray onto the robot. Now it will determine which testing machine it will put it in. It's selected this machine to conduct the test. And then it's able to actually place it inside. Now the robot will go home and charge and wait for the next task. In the meantime, this machine over here will start the testing. So we can see some examples of different tests that are running.
This one is simulating power consumption while gaming.
This machine is testing sending messages. So these phones are just texting back and forth right here. And then this machine is simulating scrolling Instagram, my favorite. And this one is testing 4K 60 FPS recording. So remember, this is a power consumption lab, and with the help of these cameras and the power measuring devices, we're actually able to determine the power consumption during different use cases. And with the help of AI, it's able to recognize visual elements on the screens and direct the robotic arm to press buttons. This right here is a more advanced wire, and with this wire, you're actually able to measure the power consumption of each individual component on the phone. So while the tests are running, you're able to get data on what component is consuming the most power. Now let's move on to the next testing lab. We are now in the intelligent terminal testing lab. Behind me, in each of these big black cabinets are phones and computers. Basically in this lab, they're testing the software from code to finished applications. This room is huge. It's one of the biggest software testing labs in the entire industry.
There are nearly 200 cabinets and 20,000 phones in this room.
Each one of these cabinets have different models of phones and are conducting different tests. Even though there are so many devices in this lab being tested at the same time, there are only 5 humans operating this entire lab. Come with me, I'll show you how long this hallway is. We finally made it to the end. That was quite a workout. So let's open up this big black cabinet and see what's inside. So each one of these rows contains cell phones, and right here we have 2 rows of phones being tested. These phones are currently running tests on third-party applications. Oppo tests the compatibility of the top 10,000 apps across the world. You can see some of the apps being tested. There are games, there are messaging software, there are map apps, and Oppo does a lot of testing on their own software as well. This entire process is very automated. Each one of these phones is connected to a USB cable, which is then hooked up to a computer. And in a digital platform, engineers can send tests over to these phones, and then they are able to collect the data. The only time humans are involved are to fix errors or if they want to replace the phones with new models. So far, I'm very, very impressed with the extensive testing that Oppo does to all their devices. It's things that I would never even think about. Even though each of these phones looks simple, I'm learning that there is so much that goes on behind the scenes to make the materials feel premium and the software run smoothly.
So there are 20,000 phones here.
I think a test that Oppo should run is see if all of them can subscribe to Hafu Go at the same time. Can we make that happen? I'm getting a blank stare. I think that's a no. So let's move on to the next test. The next stage is the packaging, which we can't really show, but we'll show you the end where the products get shipped out and sent to the store. So we started with the pre-processing, assembly, function testing, and now this is the end of the packaging stage. These may look like just normal cardboard boxes. But don't be fooled because each one is filled to the brim with the new Oppo Find X9 phones. And these will then be picked up by the mini robots that roam around here and be sent to these stores. What started off as a small circuit board and raw material now ends up here at the Oppo stores. Tested, polished, and ready for you to use, where millions of people can buy one of these for themselves. It's easy to forget how much work goes into making this little device. Huge thanks to Oppo for giving me exclusive access to their facilities. It was incredibly cool, and sponsoring this video. If you want to watch more videos about Chinese tech, click here to watch that, and click here to watch a video that YouTube thinks you'll love.